Oh, no, no. I watched that one watch. I want tell about that about one. I gotta work one. I was doing about one. Bakpakamana. Now we got out it.
With that first job, I rented a tiny room with a fan, a bed, and a
Bakpa
shower.
much.
I was only making the equivalent of $15 to $30 a week, just enough to pay for my tiny
Bakpa
room
much.
and eat a portion of
Bakpakamanana.
soup every day. But I was happy. I
Mm.
finally had my blue ocean, white sandy beaches, and coconut trees. I had taken action in my life, and it was finally paying off. All I had to do now was keep going.
Bakpakamana.
Risk and failure. At the time, I had a budget of 100 baht a day, about $3. It covered my daily serving of noodle soup, 30 baht, and gas for the rented bike I needed to get to work each day, 50 baht. I used the remaining
Bakpa
20
much.
baht to refill my phone's SIM card with credit for the day. I was spending money on booze instead of paying my rent. I could only afford one bowl of noodle soup a day. Then I started to ask the friendly Thai lady working the noodle shop if I could eat there and pay later. Even with such generosity, I awoke one morning with a banging on my door and 3 police officers on the other side. They had come to evict me. I owed money to every person I knew, and there was no one to turn to for help. I wouldn't dare call my parents and tell them I had failed again. I was just too proud. So here I was, heavily in debt, and now homeless to boot. The beauty of Phuket Island is that there are 16 white sandy beaches. Wherever you live on the island, you're always close to a beach. My first thought
I'm
was to
going
go
to.
down to the nearest beach with my
I'm
2
going
bags of
to.
clothes, sit under a palm
Aga.
tree in the
Aba
shade,
good one.
and figure out
Bakpakamanana.
what to do with
Aba
this new
bakante
situation that
maumunaka.
life had put me in. From my rented room, the nearest beach was not more than 500
Aba
meters away.
gata.
The first day and night under the palm tree with my 2 bags turned into several. Was moving here, ending up like this, worth the risk? Failure both hardens your spirit and teaches you lessons. Success comes when you soften and apply the lessons. Take action. Most people are afraid of failure, but what they are terrified of is being done, of just rolling over and letting go of their dreams. They're scared of the challenges, of not succeeding as soon as they'd like. What most people don't realize is that the moment they are about to succeed, they pull back. They begin to doubt, they begin to fear, and that's when they genuinely fail. If we look at failure, at setbacks or challenges as learning opportunities, then we never indeed fail. Even though my initial 20+ business ideas didn't turn into complete success, I learned from those experiences to create 19 very successful business opportunities. The science of risk. There are numerous examples where even a simple assessment of risk would have killed a business idea that turned out to be a huge success. What to consider when taking a risk. Your brain can perceive risk based on emotion or logic. Reminding yourself that taking a risk can be a good thing, as it reduces anxiety. Learning to bounce back from failure helps improve your confidence when taking future risks. Research tells us that the decision-making centers of our brain are composed of 2 kinds of cells, excitatory and inhibitory. Excitatory cells make up roughly 80% of this part of the brain, and inhibitory cells make up the remaining 20%. When we are younger, we don't have the experiences to put up roadblocks with our excitatory cells, which is why children and teenagers often don't think twice about risky behavior. With age comes experience. This experience becomes a filter that shuts down risky behavior because our brain assigns emotions to our past experiences. Author Kate Sukal devotes a section of The Art of Risk to the young brain, particularly the mind of the notoriously risky teenager. She details
to
research on sex
pagkatulog ang
hormones,
bawa
the
po ano.
insula brain region, and how teens respond to good idea, bad idea questions. Sukul cites fascinating studies that reveal things like how it takes adolescents longer than adults to answer questions such as, is it a good or bad idea to eat a cockroach? Teens typically have to think more because they have less experience and are open to different possibilities, making them less likely to say bad immediately. Reading this research made me understand my wild pranks in school and my gang life in Stockholm. The art of risk-taking. Understand how your brain is perceiving the risk. Recent brain science tells us risk-taking may be conscious or unconscious. When it is unconscious, you may not be aware of the threat or how you are viewing it. Feelings or emotions can obscure critical, rational thinking, or they can promote it. Even if we're conscious of our feelings, we are not aware of how much impact our subconscious emotion has on our desire to take a risk. Research also shows that people who are sociable, impulsive, sensation seekers, or aggressive may be especially likely to take risks. If you compare Mark Zuckerberg, the college kid lacking business sense who started Facebook, to the professional managers at News Corp who ran MySpace like a business, it is clear whose risk tolerance paid off. Being a risk taker means you are passionate about what you are doing, so it is generally tied to powerful emotions. The brain is rigged for error-based learning, which is why we naturally learn from experimentation. Steve Blank, the CEO of Rocket Science Games, who was going to revolutionize the video game industry, lost $35 million in funding. Instead of quitting, he went on to start another company, Epiphany, which netted each of its investors $1 billion. Create happiness and confidence. Taking responsibility can be embarrassing, humbling, painful, and even costly. However, accepting responsibility for your choices can also be very empowering. Taking personal responsibility means not blaming others for your unhappiness. It means figuring out ways you can be happy despite others' negative behaviors and despite external circumstances. When I was in a gang, drinking and fighting on the streets of Stockholm, I did not believe I had any control over my life, and I blamed the outcomes of my choices on everyone around me. I was depressed and unhappy because I thought I had no control over my life. One way to take responsibility is to change your emotional response and connection to an event. When I was fired from my jobs, I felt angry and thought I did not deserve it because my boss did not care about me. Had I instead acknowledged that my boss saw I was unhappy at the job, given my actions, and that he was releasing me to find a job that was more fulfilling because he cared about me, then I would feel grateful and more positive about my next steps. Of course, taking responsibility for not showing up to work on time and getting fired, then feeling grateful about being fired, takes effort. It is worthwhile to learn how to control your emotional mind like this. Mental control leads to confidence. Just as a child cannot imagine being as physically strong as an adult, those of us who haven't developed the ability to interpret hardship in a happiness-embracing fashion cannot imagine being happy in extremely negative circumstances. It is useful to think of the ability to control your emotional response to a specific event as a muscle. Just as your biceps become stronger only when you exercise them, if you allow relatively minor incidents, like an encounter with a rude waitress, spoil your mood, how can you expect to maintain your happiness when a more extreme event, like a week-long visit from an unpleasant relative, happens? A critical element in developing mental control is a willingness to accept whatever comes your way. If you cannot fully accept your results, including, for example, a toxic boss or poor health, then you will not be able to interpret these outcomes in a positive light, and, hence, you cannot be happy. So, taking personal responsibility for your happiness involves Ultimately, the willingness to fully and unquestioningly accept the outcomes you are dealt in life. The more we do this, the more confidence we develop to take new actions to rebound from and move on. More confidence also improves our ability to take risks. Act as if. The Victorian philosopher William James theorized about emotion and behavior. James stated that it isn't our feelings that guide our actions. Feel happy and you will laugh. On the contrary, it is our actions that guide our emotions. Laugh and you will feel happy. If you want a quality, act as if you already have it, he concluded. The same advice applies to almost all aspects of our everyday lives. By acting as if you are a specific type of person, you become that person. What is called the as-if principle. Principle number 3. Focus on I am. Thoughts become things. If you see it in your mind, you will hold it in your hand. Bob Proctor, you were born rich. After being thrown out of my tiny room in Thailand, I spent days sleeping on the beach, using my bags as pillows and my 2 towels as blankets. I made sure to wake up at 5 o'clock, just before the first tourists or workers arrived, so they did not see me. I spent nights looking at the stars, trying to understand how I had ended up under these palm trees. Some nights I cried myself to sleep, and other nights I raged and blamed my company, my parents, and my friends for my situation. I blamed everyone and everything for ending up homeless, except myself. One afternoon, while sitting on the beach, I was hungry and desperately trying to figure out how I could get food. I had borrowed money from everyone I knew in the area, and the only person willing to extend me credit was the lovely lady at the noodle shop. Over the years, she would become a second mother to me, as I would recount my life to her over a bowl of hot noodles. However, even with her kindness, I was tired of noodles and was starving in many ways. Then an idea flashed in my mind, reminding me of an old friend in Sweden whom I had not talked to since I'd left. I called him. I started to beg him to help me so I could afford to get a cheap room somewhere. He listened to me, and when I finished my story, he told me that he could not help me with money, but would email me a book that he thought could help me. Wow. Here I was, homeless, with nothing, and he was offering me a book. A book that was going to help me? I was asking for money because that is what I needed to get food and a room. A book. I couldn't believe it. I was also embarrassed, and so I thanked him for offering to send me the book. I hung up, angry and upset that his only offer of help was to send me a book. I realized after a few hours that a book would help me pass the time in the evenings with nothing else to do sitting on the beach. Maybe this book would focus my mind on something other than dwelling on how life was being cruel to me. I printed it out at the local internet shop and started reading it that very same night. For those of you who've read The Secret, The Law of Attraction, or at least heard about it, you'd expect that I would have had an epiphany right there on the beach, that the book would have been the key to turning my life around, but it wasn't. My first reactions to reading the book? Unrealistic. Garbage. I was so angry at my friend that I decided to take this anger out on the book. Think positive. Visualize, and you will receive. What a load of crap. I set out to prove the theories in The Secret were wrong. I would follow the book's instructions to the letter, and I would prove they did not work. I started to visualize small because I didn't believe it would work, and it seemed easier to follow the instructions using small things. A cup of coffee. I sat on my towel on the beach and decided to focus my mind, with closed eyes, thinking deeply how great it would feel to have someone give me a cup of hot, delicious coffee. The first few times I tried it, I felt stupid, but with little else to do on that beach, I kept trying. After a few more attempts, I began to see the cup of coffee more clearly in my head. I could see the steam rising from the cup. I could smell the aroma. 2 days later, while sitting on the beach, one of the beach boys who handled the jet skis came up to me and said, "I've seen you several days here already, so I thought I could offer you a coffee. You look very tired." I couldn't believe it. Not only had I manifested what I saw in my mind, but it was the best cup of coffee I'd had in a long time. Still skeptical, but more curious, I decided I would manifest lunch. I had not eaten anything but noodles in weeks, and the thought of a good lunch seemed like a massive windfall to me. When I closed my eyes and began the visualization exercise, I still felt silly. The first few times were awkward and stiff. With the memory of the coffee, I kept trying until I could feel myself eating the lunch. A few days later, I bumped into an old colleague from the hotel. "Hi, Andres," he said. "I have not seen you for a while. How are you? Let me buy you lunch." Was this working, or was this a coincidence? Regardless of the first two visualizations coming to fruition, I was still not entirely convinced and decided I would increase the stakes. I would visualize something bigger and more complex, like getting a better job. I started visualizing how good it would feel to have a job where I could get paid and be able to afford a room to sleep in again and have daily showers, clean new clothes, and a better life. A life that would make my parents proud. Visualizing with emotion. I was visualizing vivid pictures and creating movies in my mind about the new job I wanted in my life. But it was not until much later that I understood that any creative visualization needs to be backed by strong, positive emotions. That's where the real magnetism and attraction happen. I was lucky that I was doing it unintentionally in the beginning. Of course, I didn't just sit and wait on the beach feeling happy about getting a new job. I had to take action. I spent 2 days asking around town about job openings. On the second day, I landed a job as a marketing executive, handing tourists brochures from a real estate office. After a few short weeks, instead of a tiny room to rent, I could afford a nice little house with a small garden in the back. I now wanted to read many other books, and I filled my spare time reading book after book on the power of the mind. Using the cup of coffee, the lunch, and the new job as my proof that I could finally have control over my own life, I started to implement into my life many of the teachings from the books I was reading. Did I finally have control over my life because I was beginning to think differently? Or had I previously been giving up control over my life by not thinking differently? The answer is less important than the act of merely starting to think differently. With my newfound excitement for life, I began using daily affirmations after learning the power of autosuggestions by Napoleon Hill in his book, Think and Grow Rich. I learned to program my subconscious mind into whatever I wished to achieve, experience, or have during meditation sessions, which I read about from others like Tony Robbins and Jack Canfield. I also began writing down my goals daily and placing the pieces of paper all over my apartment and office. Things started to happen in my life very quickly as I became better and better at creative visualizations, calming my mind, and writing down daily goals. My life changed because of my daily morning routine of sitting in my garden, visualizing all my goals and events that I wanted to materialize. On the way to work, I would repeat my affirmations loudly. I would sit in my car and yell, "I'm the best salesperson in Thailand. Everyone who meets me loves to buy from me. I create my reality. I am a master salesman. I am a successful person. I am a happy and helping person. I am in the process of becoming wealthy." I finally felt in control of my life, and it motivated me to keep pushing harder and taking more and more action. The feelings you dream up in your mind around people, places, and things are the most powerful ingredients for creating your best reality. The power of I am. One of the things that I have added to the knowledge I learned over 16 years from all these books and seminars is the power of I am. Adding the words I am in front of any affirmation enhances it, since you talk directly with your soul, which connects directly with your subconscious and conscious thoughts. It is through this process of autosuggestions that I was able to remaster my life. On my living room and bedroom walls, I have the same script that I repeat every day, and during the day my subconscious sees it on the wall and takes notice of it. The painted inscriptions are, I am whole, I am healthy, I am happy, I am wealthy, I am helpful. Sometimes I repeat these 5 focus points more than 100 times on days when I am working on a big project in my business. While this may seem silly or a waste of time to you, consider that if you can control your mind, you can control your life. Your mind is mostly a subconscious machine when you consider all of the things it has you do without conscious thought, like breathing. Focusing forces the mind to reprogram itself. Your conscious mind is very protective as to what it will let into your supercomputer, the subconscious mind. It acts like a 24-hour security guard, making sure nothing enters without proper reason. Daily affirmations are very important to keep your mood elevated and your subconscious programmed with the right thinking and behaviors you need to achieve your deepest desires. Adding I am to my daily affirmations made all the difference. 5 main I am points of focus. There are endless possibilities to what you can center your affirmations around. I have found that by limiting it to these specific 5, I can intensify my focus and get faster, more meaningful results. I am whole. I have chosen I am whole since I'm deeply grateful that I'm a whole person with no handicaps, and I wish to continue being whole. Some people have physical disadvantages. Some people battle with depression, anxiety, or confidence issues. I remember battling depression, paranoia, and anxiety. I was not whole then. In this respect, I am now a whole person and choose to be conscious and grateful for this. I also acknowledge that because I am whole, I have little right to complain or make excuses, and I have to help others in need. I am healthy. This is another statement that has a powerful meaning, since nothing in this world can be of much pleasure if you have a sick body. Exercising and following a nutritious diet are essential to being healthy, so this is a prime focus in my life. I've found that when I focus on my health, it is then easier to concentrate on my other goals of success. I am happy. I am happy is a fundamental key to my success and achievement. We should always be programming our mind to have a happy and positive outlook so we can enjoy what we do and have in life. Focusing on being happy makes us more productive, grateful, and open to new experiences. I am wealthy. I am wealthy, as I have stated previously, comes from the fact that we need to create what we want in our minds first before it can manifest in our physical world. Your mind needs to accept the concept of wealth, free from limiting beliefs and self-doubt. We can only become that through constant repetition until our subconscious mind has taken it as being true with no restrictions. Our world has abundant wealth, and anyone can share in that abundance with the right state of mind to receive it. I am helpful. This has always been a significant statement for me. There is no greater feeling than helping others in need without expecting anything in return. You don't need to know a person to help them, and there are always people in need everywhere. You need to put in a little effort to find them. I have chosen these 5 affirmations because they represent what is most important to me, and they are the characteristics I desire to continue having throughout my whole life. What will be your 5? I have kept myself motivated by using this method and by continuously programming my mind, my soul, and my belief system by repeating these statements and forming this practice into habit and routine. Of course, I've had my ups and downs, and sometimes weeks can pass by without me practicing my affirmations. but I gently guide myself back to the practice. Meditation and visualization. Often, when my employees have downturns or less productive months, I ask them if they have set any new goals for themselves, or if they have glanced at or read their goals that month. I also ask them if they are reading any books, and if so, which ones. Then I like to ask when they last did affirmations. Usually, asking these questions gets them to realize that they have fallen out of a routine, and is enough to kickstart their successful habits again. One way that I make sure to repeat my daily affirmations is by creating a physical reminder of my visualizations during meditation. When I first started in real estate sales and was trying to achieve deals, I would start by writing one letter or two on my hands. For instance, every time I was in the car headed for the real estate office, I would look down at my hands on the steering wheel and see BS, which stood for Best Salesperson. I would then repeat to myself, I'm the best salesperson in Phuket. Or when I wanted to have a new car, a Toyota Vios, I wrote TV on my hand so that every time I saw those letters, I would repeat to myself, I'm driving a Toyota Vios. If someone asked about the writing on my hand, I would say that it was an appointment I need to remember. So no matter where you are going for the day, make sure to have small cues to help remind yourself of your affirmations and to program yourself with those positive thoughts. Principle number 4, thinking time. Make it a priority. Be alone. That is the secret of invention. Be alone. That is when ideas are born. Nikola Tesla. The first business I ever owned was the real estate agency I launched after resigning as sales director from the real estate office where I had started. During those first few years, I'd saved enough to open my own little real estate office. I was now an independent business owner. My confidence was high, but while in my mind I was on my way to incredible success in real estate, I still had a lot to learn about running a business. Several months into managing the agency, I started to struggle again. I had very few clients and sales revenue was down. I needed to pay my office rental fees, suppliers for marketing material, and 2 employees. I started to borrow money to pay bills. That was the beginning of another downward spiral. My worst business failure. I wasn't making enough money. My debts were starting to mount. I was 2 months late with the office rent. I could not pay my 2 employees. To make matters worse, I received a phone call from the building owners telling me I had to pack and leave as they were going to rent the space to another business. I had to declare to the bank that I was bankrupt. I had to face my employees and tell them we were going out of business and that I wouldn't be able to pay their salary. These employees trusted me, relied on me, supported me, and had families who relied on them. This was one of the hardest moments I ever faced in my life. My agency officially closed. I started to ask myself, why did this happen? Where did it go wrong? How could it happen? What situations led to this? And what can I do to make it better? Learning from mistakes. My first mistake was acquiring office space in a remote part of town where no clients or buyers would visit. I leased this particular office space because it was big and cheap. My thinking was to go big at first so I could occupy the office with more employees and more computers and make it impressive for clients when they did visit us. I soon discovered, one of my failures, that I should have focused on lining up clients and customers before I started expanding. Marketing should always come first, impressive office space later. With no clients, you have no sales. Without sales, you have no income. With no income, you don't have anything when it comes to business. I wrote down all the things that went wrong and how they went wrong. My first realization, I had stopped creating goals for myself. Without consciously doing so, I had quit my daily habits of affirmations, visualizations, and meditation when I opened my first company. I had stopped reading self-development books and listening to audio tapes and other motivational products and materials. I became caught in the mental prison of worrying about all the things that I didn't want in my life again. I focused on sadness and scarcity instead of happiness and abundance. That evening, I took my pen out and started to write down all my goals and desires, from minor to major. When I finished, I realized that I had not visualized for almost a year. Could it have that big of an impact in my life? I migrated to my backyard garden. There sat my old chair, right where I left it over a year ago, deteriorated from the sun and rain. It struck me that, just like the old chair, I had become worn and tired from neglecting to do all the things that had brought me so much happiness. I started to meditate again, and after just one session, I was filled with calm and was much clearer on what I wanted to be, do, or have in my life. I wrote down affirmations and applied my auto-suggestions backed by positive feelings. My walls were once again beginning to become covered in A4 sheets with strong affirmations written all over them. Pictures of materialistic things started to go up in my house and fridge again, so I could start seeing the things I wanted daily. I was operating from an abundance mindset again. I had no office and no employees, but I still had my marketing booth in a 6-meter square space at our local shopping mall. I started my mornings in my garden, thinking of how great it would be with happy clients who loved buying real estate from me. My deep morning meditations filled me with a newly awakened passion. 2 months before the next payment on my house was due, I started to get sales and earn income again. It did not take long until I had a solid database of buyers and investors who urged me to develop a condominium project. I had gained their trust and respect after placing their funds in high-yielding property investments. It was natural to say yes, because I had long been visualizing the goal of becoming a property developer. Crisis enters our life because we lose personal focus and inner confidence. When handling an emergency, we often look for outside verification that everything will be all right. We go outward instead of inward, which creates additional stress and anxiety. A crisis causes us to lose touch with what we want and confidence in our ability to obtain it. Thinking time. I love nature. I love climbing mountains, and I love spending days in the wild, far away from civilization, unable to check my emails or even make a phone call. Acknowledging that the world can survive without you for several days is the first step in being able to detach and focus inward. That's how I reload myself with new energy and motivation, and I learn to love life itself. I believe connecting with nature is essential to our spirits. We disconnect from the energy of the earth itself in today's modern world, which has made us lose part of our spirituality. We came from nature. We are a part of it. And when you spend days out in nature, you will feel comfort and bliss. Nature itself is talking to you when you pay attention and stay in the present moment. It is where I go for my thinking time. Taking time to be alone doesn't mean you must be lonely. It merely says you are focusing on yourself, the one who should mean the most to you in this world. It's important to have people in your life whom you love, but you should never put others before yourself to the point where you are then living a miserable experience. Instead, take time out of every day just for you. You can spend the time meditating, going for a walk, doing a bit of retail therapy, or working on your dream board or goal list. Whatever you choose to do during the time you give yourself each day, make sure that the activity will benefit you in some way, whether that is to still your mind, relax your body, or help you focus on what you want to accomplish next. It should be a time when fear and worry cannot affect you, and it should leave you feeling recharged and ready to go back to whatever you need to do next to achieve your dreams. Response time. One of the main things I learned in business is that when a crisis hits, our instinct is to fight or flee, just like in nature. If a business deal is going bad, we immediately ask ourselves, should I fight to win or should I walk away? When you are facing a downturn in sales, a bad Apple employee, competitors stealing your business, tax issues, or funding problems, it is comfortable to stop thinking of solutions and start focusing on fight or flight responses. When you are in fight or flight mode, having thinking time and being alone is very challenging. Since I spent many years in this reactionary mode, I became a student of how to avoid this state of being and relax. The founder of Harvard's Institute for Mind-Body Medicine, Dr. Herbert Benson, coined the term relaxation response. The response defines your personal ability to encourage your body to release chemicals and brain signals that slow down your muscles and organs and increase blood flow to the brain. It is essentially the opposite reaction to the fight or flight response. The relaxation response is essentially a form of deep relaxation, which affects and activates the parasympathetic nervous system, and you practice it through activities such as visualization, meditation, affirmations, breathing techniques, and yoga. His studies throughout the 1960s and 1970s indicated that normal secretion of stress hormones contributes to many medical conditions such as cardiovascular disease, GI diseases, and adrenal fatigue. His research has also shown that regular use of the relaxation response can help relieve stress-related health problems, including insomnia and hypertension. Being alone is a form of self-care. Finding time to be with yourself helps you practice self-care, an excellent technique for focusing on yourself and what you want to achieve in this lifetime. When you can love yourself fully, then you can genuinely love another person. Spending time alone doesn't mean you're selfish. It merely says you're dedicated, both to yourself and to those you serve. You are becoming the best version of yourself when you dedicate the time as often as you can to do things that bring you peace and love. You are your own biggest fan and the most motivating person in your life. It's important to take care of number one, you, and allow yourself to feel whole again. The biggest breakthroughs come from solitude. Principle number 5. Celebration creates addiction to progress. Colleagues should take care of each other, have fun, celebrate success, learn by failure, look for reasons to praise others and not to criticize. Communicate freely and respect each other. Richard Branson. Before I arrived in Thailand, I remember mostly darkness. I tried to leave the streets of my gang family to work at a job that was supposed to put me on the right path. I left the comfort of the streets I knew, the camaraderie, the feeling of being a part of something, even if it was the wrong thing. On the streets, when I would win a fight, my street family would be excited for me. I felt the impact I had on the streets, and it came back to me in positive vibrations, which is one reason I was loyal to my gang life for so long, even though it almost killed me. In Stockholm, sitting at my desk at the telemarketing firm, surrounded by other people all day, I felt utterly alone and worthless. When I would close a sale, there was always someone else getting praised for closing a more significant sale. The bonuses went to the top closers, and the rest of us went unrecognized. In this company, the best got praised, and the worst were asked to leave, while those of us in the middle were invisible. I've said before that I hated that telemarketing job so much that after being late so often, I was let go, leaving me paranoid, staring through the peephole of my apartment. Was this job responsible for my anxiety, depression, and lack of motivation? No. Ultimately, that was on me. However, was the job responsible for making me feel invisible, unimportant, and replaceable? With 19 companies and hundreds of employees in all different types of businesses, from real estate to gyms to coffee shops, I have experienced great success. A large part of that success is building teams that always feel seen, heard, and irreplaceable. In that telemarketing office, the awards went to individuals, the employee of the month, or the person with the top sales figures. This reward system always struck me as demotivating. Management only valued the employees who were continually winning. There were no team achievements nor acknowledgement for the employees who supported the top salespeople. I watched good people quit, and many, like me, became isolated and performed at lower levels. The only thing I learned from that job was that teams matter. People deserve to be recognized. For every victory, let there be a celebration. Taking the time to recognize your successes will immediately boost positivity and vanquish negativity. You may not want to throw a party for every single accomplishment, but at least acknowledge it to yourself. Pat yourself on the back and smile about it. In my teen years and in my early years in Phuket, I took the celebration to a whole new level. As a youth, every night was a party to celebrate life, because who knew what was going to happen tomorrow? All my money went to buying alcohol and spending time with my friends. Even when I first moved to Thailand and got my first job at the hotel, just passing out promotional material, I took what very little money I was earning and started to party again with coworkers who had the same perspective on life. Once in a while, celebrating with your friends or even coworkers in this way is fine, but you shouldn't make it a daily habit or the primary focus in your life. Small mistakes almost always make us feel bad. So, accomplishing small goals should always make us feel good. Celebrate successes with others. Show enthusiasm, always. All of this is more important and more fun than you think. Don't take yourself so seriously. Loosen up, and everybody around you will loosen up. Have fun. Create great teamwork by organizing outings for your employees. Whenever my sales team breaks a record or hits targets, we celebrate. We plan an outing together as a team and enjoy our moments of victory and teamwork. Great feelings of accomplishment overcome the team members, and they realize that it's much more fun and productive to celebrate success with others than be alone. I implore employees to celebrate and to be happy when they hear of others' accomplishments, even if they see them as rivals. In 2016, my sales team and I broke a long-lasting sales record we had been trying to break for almost 2 years, and upon that accomplishment, I invited the whole sales team to climb to the top of one of Southeast Asia's highest active volcanoes. Our spirits filled with joy, relief, and happiness. We bonded after that 4-day extreme summit. We shared tents, sat around campfires, and shared stories about ourselves. Our teams have become so caring and helpful toward each other that they are surpassing previous records and revenues. Celebrate everyday things. Take the time to celebrate the small things every day. This goes hand in hand with finding little things to be grateful for. Celebrate a home-cooked meal you made, a successful day at work, or perhaps a new business relationship that you didn't have before. Celebrations shouldn't be limited to when your business has made an enormous breakthrough or sale. Celebrate the small things too, like employees' birthdays or wedding anniversaries. Know your employees. Don't just celebrate the organization's success, but individual success in everyone's lives. You can celebrate in small ways or in big ways. You can merely meditate and reflect on what you were able to accomplish, or go out to a concert and celebrate life with everyone dancing around you. Take the time to celebrate with other people and maximize the feeling of joy and accomplishment. The key is that when you include others in your celebration, you should be conscious of their emotional experience and plan something that everyone will enjoy. Create addiction to progress. Teresa Amabile, a Harvard Business School professor, led a study that analyzed 12,000 diary entries from 238 employees at 7 companies. The findings were fascinating. Workers' motivation was enhanced when they wrote down their achievements daily in the diary. The practice of recording our progress, Amabile explains, helps us appreciate small wins, which in turn boosts our confidence. Confidence is the key to achieving future, more considerable successes. This research and an article by Patrick Edblad showed me that no matter how small, acknowledging accomplishments triggers the reward center of our brains. Our brain releases what I call happy hormones, which are essential chemicals that, when released, give us a feeling of achievement and pride. One of those hormones, the neurotransmitter dopamine, is the chemical that gives us that sweet feeling of reward, but also pushes us to act on what triggered its release in the first place. I was surprised to discover that the same substance that gets people hooked on gambling, nicotine, and alcohol essentially creates an addiction to progress. Being from the streets, this addiction to progress concept made perfect sense to me. Principle number 6. The law of vibrational giving. If you knew what I know about the power of giving, you would not let a single meal pass without sharing it in some way. Siddhartha Gautama. Most people know that giving can lead to receiving.
I'm going to go in a couple minutes,
like John
everybody.
Gray, Jack Canfield, and Tony Robbins
I'm going to go in a couple
the law
minutes.
of attraction as it pertains to giving. That what you give, you will get back tenfold in return. While I am a big believer in the principle that the universe returns to you tenfold what you send out into it, in my opinion, most people are going about giving in the wrong way. The act of giving is as simple as giving away money to someone who needs it with a sense of spiritual duty or responsibility. I believe the act of giving should be in the form of vibrational giving. What's the difference? Traditional giving. The way most people give is by tithing. That is the conventional way of giving 10% of your income to a religious organization. Most religions teach that we need to give 10% of the money we receive as a form of payment to God. While that has worked for centuries, and I have no argument with it, it's just not the way I do it. Dr. Joe Vitale tells people to give 10% of their income to wherever they receive spiritual nourishment. That could be an Uber driver, a waiter, someone you meet at the store who says encouraging words, or an organization. I like this idea because it opens the possibility of giving to others, including, but not limited to, a church. Responsibility or duty-based giving. When we donate money, and perhaps time, to charities, action groups, or impact organizations like Toys for Tots, the Girl Scouts, or the Red Cross, we are doing so out of a sense of responsibility or duty. We feel obligated to support a cause we identify with in some way. Again, this is not how I believe we should practice giving. Vibrational giving. I discovered a specific way of giving that resulted in me becoming a billionaire before the age of 35. I focus on the emotion that I feel while I am doing the giving. The feeling attached to the giving is far more critical than most people may realize. If you feel hate as you do anything, you are setting up an attractor field to experience hate later. If you feel love as you do something, you are also engaging in a principle to attract love back to you later. The trouble is, most people give only money and expect only money in return. While that works, it's limited. The universe may have something better for you than money. I've learned that this vibrational giving is the real secret to giving. Give, and the universe will give back to you tenfold. Give without expectation. I once did a 14-day trek across India with my friend David, in a rickshaw, I might add, to raise money for Cool Earth, a charity that buys rainforest areas in South America to preserve and make sure they never get cut down. We drove through the whole of northern India through some of the poorest cities and towns where many of the locals had never even seen a tourist. We were a strange sight, to say the least. A bald white Englishman, David, and a Latino-looking guy, me, riding through town on a homemade motorized rickshaw that continually broke down, leaving us perplexed about how to fix it. However, every time, within moments, a group of townspeople would come over, inspect the vehicle, and manage to fix the problem. Every time after getting help, we reached for our wallets to give them a tip for their much appreciated work, and each time they declined. They did it out of pure human heart and kindness. Indians, as well, are one of the most friendly and helpful people I have ever met. They reinforced the law of vibrational giving.
Okay, I'm gonna go up one. Bucks Pagaman, I'm gonna put back on Jamal Munich. I'm gonna put back on Jamal Munich. Bucks your up one Pagaman to book at your work and bow. A book at